In the frozen silence of the Arctic winter, where the sun disappears for months on end, and snow reflects not just light, but concealed truths, an unseen realm flickers just beyond our sight. This world is concealed not by distance, but by perception. Here, the ordinary becomes enchanted, and darkness reveals a secret spectrum of colors invisible to the naked eye. To us, winter is white, stark, still. But to creatures adapted to this realm, like reindeer, the landscape glows with signals, trails, and radiant hues we cannot see. Where ravens, long seen as harbingers of death, might in fact gleam like ultraviolet phoenixes shimmering in a spectrum we never knew even existed. What if these stories we've inherited of flying reindeer, of red-nosed guides, of wise ravens, of glowing mushrooms under evergreen trees? What if they weren't just folklore? What if they are echoes of an older, stranger truth? A truth glimpsed only by those who've learned how to see in the dark. Stay tuned and I'll explain just how magical this world really is. Ho 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 ho, and Yuletide greetings, mortals. I am your nomadic Quen host Simeon, and much like Odin, you've wandered into a place seeking wisdom. A place some call the Library of Gnosis. Hidepeive och välkommen! So, that was quite the evocative introduction. But now allow me to get scientific and explain for you the facts. During the winter months, reindeer's eyes undergo a seasonal color shift, changing from a golden orange hue in the summer to a rich crystalline blue in the winter, which helps them adapt to the extreme light conditions of the Arctic. This remarkable adaptation increases blue light scattering inside their eyes, enhancing their ability to detect contrast in the snowy, dimly lit winter landscape. Remarkably, this makes them the only scientifically known mammal capable of seeing into the ultraviolet spectrum. To creatures with UV vision, the world looks completely different. Snow reflects UV light intensely, and many natural features, such as urine trails, lichens, and even the fur of predators, glow in the UV range. But perhaps one of the most surprisingly beautiful effects of this is how birds appear to those animals. Many dark-feathered birds, such as crows, ravens, and other corvids, which appear jet black to us, actually shimmer with vibrant and vivid ultraviolet hues when seen through UV-sensitive eyes. So occulted within what we perceive as pure darkness, lies a hidden prism of light. A whole nother spectrum of deeper and unseen rainbow colors cloaked from our eyes, but not from all. In this world, black is a new form of white. A surface that reveals rather than hides, but only when seen through the right eyes. It is noteworthy that ravens were one of the animals sacred to the chief god of the Norse pantheon, Odin, the one-eyed wanderer, who gave up one of his eyes to gain hidden wisdom. Now, if that isn't a hands-on example of the hidden knowledge Odin famously sought, I don't know what is. What might you see if your eyes could pierce the Arctic twilight? What secrets could a single lost eye reveal? What we call darkness might not be emptiness, but a veil. One that only those who dare to sacrifice their usual way of seeing, like Odin who gave up an eye for wisdom, can pierce. This is the essence of occult knowledge. Secrets hidden in plain sight. Truths visible only to those who know how to look, and with a mind open to seeing them. So, to a reindeer in winter, ravens may look less like grim omens, and more like glowing, iridescent parrots dancing against the white canvas of snow. Truly a winter wonderland. Being a native European myself, more specifically a Kven from above the Arctic Circle in northern Sweden, Norrbotten, I grew up surrounded by these animals and stories even from a young age. Odin was accompanied by two specific ravens, Hugin and Munin, whose names mean thought and memory respectively. They flew across the world each day, bringing him knowledge of all that happened, and returning with news of everything they saw, acting as Odin's other eyes. Growing up in northern Sweden, I was clueless about my native ancestry, and that I was surrounded not just by secretly very fascinating animals, but also overlooked fungi. Few people today realize that Amanita muscaria, more commonly known as the red and white toadstool, is not just a fairy tale fungus, but is in reality a dissociative psychedelic. It has been used by northern shamans like my ancestors as an entheogen to induce mystical experiences since ancient times. This mushroom is often speculated to have been used by berserkers to induce a frenzied and fearless state in combat. In Old Norse sources, berserkir, berserkers, are often associated with wearing bear pelts. Berserker meaning bare shirt. Berserkers didn't just fight like animals, they became them. The boundary between man, beast, and god blurred under the weight of frenzy, ritual, and what some now suspect were visionary fungi. Odin was the Norse god of frenzy, and the warriors most closely associated with him were the berserkers who wore wolf pelts instead, who were known as Ulfethnar. Even today, the archaic Swedish word for wolf, ulv, echoes their name. While both of these groups were considered elite, ferocious and frenzied warriors in service to Odin, those warriors who wore wolf pelts and were said to channel the ferocity of wolves in battle were considered Wotan's most close and elite warriors, due to the wolf, Ulv, being one of the animals sacred to him. Ulfethnar were not merely warriors, they were incarnations of Odin, wearing the skin of wolves, channeling divine hunger. In the far north of Arctic, Finnic, and Sami tradition, survival depended on cunning, endurance, and the ability to read the land. Exactly what wolves do. In Sami and Finnic shamanism, the wolf could be a Noids, shamans, helping spirit, or alternate form during spirit journeys. Such a wolf double gave protection, hunting ability, and ferocity in battle. Some clan totems were lupine, meaning the wolf wasn't just an admired animal, it was a guardian identity. This mirrors how warriors might think of themselves as the wolf's human counterpart. A wolf protecting your settlement was both a supernatural ally and a psychological weapon. Enemies feared it, insiders revered it. This guardian role had a social meaning too. The wolf was seen as disciplined, loyal to its pack, and ruthless to outsiders. Traits idolized in tightly knit frontier communities. Among Scythians, Sarmatians, and other steppe nomads, the wolf was often sacred. Initiation rites for some warrior bands involved wearing wolfskins or taking on a wolf name, symbolizing transformation into a predator. Greek sources sometimes record Scythians claiming descent from a union of a woman and a wolf spirit, an origin myth tied to warrior prowess. The wolf here was about speed, ambush, and loyalty to the Brotherhood, portable across cultures. As mentioned, the Ulfethnar, wolf cloaks, were Norse warriors, often described alongside berserkers. They fought in coordinated packs, using intimidation, shock tactics, and furious assaults. This is eerily close to the steppe wolf warrior imagery, not just in costume, but in the psychological warfare and kin bonding of the group. The similarity is striking enough that some historians speculate on cultural transmission via trade, mercenary service, or earlier Finnic-Baltic intermediaries. Essentially, an unbroken chain of wolf warrior archetypes from Siberia to Scandinavia. Odin himself was flanked not only by his ravens, but also two spectral wolves by the names of Geri and Freki, who accompanied him and symbolized the untamed, devouring aspect of war and death, as their names respectively roughly translates as the ravenous or greedy one and the gluttonous or voracious one. An interesting thing to note is that the word ravenous is etymologically connected to raven from the verb to raven, as in the wolf ravened the carcass, thus exist in English, and thus mean to devour greedily. This verb stems from the same Latin root, rapere, through Old French, and is not originally connected to the bird. However, because ravens are scavengers, and known for devouring, especially carrion, the meanings overlapped over time, even if the etymologies didn't. Seems archetypes operate on all levels of existence. Ravens, Corvus corax, and wolves, Canis lupus, share a well-documented mutualistic bond in the wild and are frequently seen flocking together. Initially, biologists believed ravens merely benefited by trailing wolf packs to carcasses, waiting for them to tear open thick hides the birds couldn't pierce on their own, letting the wolves tear open hides too tough for their beaks. They have also been known to guide wolves to unscavenged carcasses for the very same purpose. But the relationship is not merely utilitarian in nature. Field observations have revealed something deeper behind this bond. Ravens have been seen playfully swooping and diving over wolves. Wolves, in turn, chase ravens in mock hunts, not in hunger or hostility, but in what can only be described as play. Juvenile wolves and ravens, especially, seem to delight in each other's company. This kind of interspecies play is extraordinarily rare in the animal kingdom. Wolves and ravens don't just cooperate. They seem to genuinely enjoy each other's presence. Basically, wolves and ravens just like hanging out together. You know what they say. Birds of a feather flock together. Wolves, Canis lupus, are without a doubt one of, and likely, the most successful large apex land predators on planet Earth besides humans, credited to their social and pack hunting strategy. But not just for their hunting strategy, but their adaptability across a stunning range of biomes. Wolves have historically inhabited more of the northern hemisphere than any other large predator. They thrive in Arctic tundra, boreal forests, temperate woodlands, mountains, grasslands, deserts, and even semi-urban and agricultural areas. Very few apex predators can adapt across such a wide ecological spectrum. Their often cited rivals, big cats for example, tend to be biome specific and have simply filled a narrow niche. Yes, change is the basic law of nature. But the changes wrought by the passage of time affects individuals and institutions in different ways. According to Darwin's Origin of Species, it is not the most intellectual of the species that survives. It is not the strongest that survives. But the species that survives is the one that is able to best adapt and adjust to the changing environment in which it finds itself. Applying this theoretical concept to us as individuals, we can state that the civilization that is able to survive is the one that is able to adapt to the changing physical, societal, political, moral, and spiritual environment in which it finds itself. Leon C. Megginson. Scientists often measure animal intelligence not by brain size alone, but by the number and density of neurons, especially in the cerebral cortex. That's the part of the brain responsible for higher cognitive functions like problem solving, planning, and social behavior. A large brain might look impressive, but it can be inefficient, like in some large animals. Meanwhile, a smaller brain packed with densely arranged neurons can be far more cognitively capable. In a landmark 2017 study by neuroscientist Susanna Herculon-Hussel, researchers found that dogs have about 530 million cortical neurons, compared to around 250 million in cats. That's more than double. The implication? Dogs may have a much greater capacity for complex behavior and problem solving than cats. And considering wolves, who are the wild ancestors of dogs, must coordinate pack hunts, strategize, and navigate harsh ecological pressures, their brains may be even more neuronally efficient. Now, before I go further, I need to clear up a common misconception. Cats aren't aloof, dark, and mysterious because they're guarding ancient divine secrets, despite what pop culture memes would have us believe. That idea largely comes from the notion that the Egyptians worshipped cats. But in reality, the Egyptians held many animals as sacred. Cats were important, yes, but so were others. Take the ibis, for example. Archaeologists have found 4 more mummified ibises than cats. The ibis was sacred to Thoth, the god of wisdom, writing, and magic. The Romans equated Thoth with Mercury, whose day, Dies Mercurii, we now call Wednesday in English, or Wotan's Day. While popular culture portrays cats as mysterious guardians of ancient secrets, their behavior often reflects a highly independent and self-interested nature. When we examine feline behavior, we see traits that might resemble what psychologists call antisocial personality disorder. That's the clinical term for what most people know as psychopathy. A chronic pattern of behavior that disregards the rights and well-being of others. Of course, I don't mean your cat is secretly plotting world domination. Well, not seriously. But many cats do operate with a certain self-serving logic, prioritizing independence, control, and getting what they want. But don't worry, this isn't meant to be a full-on rant against cats. Yes, when your cat rubs against your leg, it's probably not showing affection. It's likely scent marking, claiming you as its territory, i.e., a subtle act of domination. But let's be fair, cats and ibises do have something in common. Both are known to be very graceful creatures. I'd argue that grace comes from their highly calculated, deliberate movements. Grace, after all, is a byproduct of control. And not all cats are solitary. Lions, for instance, are one of the rare felines to live in social groups. Prides. Within prides, injured or older lions are sometimes tolerated and fed by others in the pride, which is something unheard of in most other feline species. While we can't read a lion's mind, their response to the distress of cubs or pride members are suggestive of basic empathic instincts. These behaviors suggest some level of empathy, loyalty, or at least reciprocal awareness. And there have even been recorded events of them putting themselves in danger to protect humans. So credit where credit is due. Lions are one of the few felines to display pack behavior and are seen as solar symbols. Just like the sun protects and nourishes those who surround it. In Norse mythology, ravens are also seen as solar symbols, and they of course share similar traits, forming packs or conspiracies and more. Dogs, on the other hand, are actually not traditionally seen as solar symbols in the same way that animals like lions, eagles, and roosters are. Dogs, especially black or two-headed ones, are closely linked to Mercury as psychopomps, the guides of souls to the underworld. Mythological figures like Cerberus, the multi-headed hound guarding Hades, Anubis, the Egyptian jackal-headed god protecting the dead, and Hecate, the Greek goddess of magic and crossroads, associated with howling dogs, highlight dogs' role as boundary walkers connected to intuition, guidance, or hidden knowledge, rather than the radiant solar glory. Canines instead carry lunar symbolism, famously howling at the moon, and in alchemy and tarot, like the moon card, represents the instinctual, loyal self responding to mystery and illusion, sensing the unseen through their heightened physical senses, like smell and hearing, and also through their high emotional intelligence, being able to sense slight shifts in energies and moods around them. Solar animals are more brash, being symbols of day, authority, and radiance like lions and eagles, while dogs and wolves represent night, intuition, threshold, loyalty, and guardianship. So, as mentioned, Odin, the Allfather, was accompanied by the ravens Hugin and Munin, and the wolves Geri and Freki. The very animals that modern science now shows as natural companions were already linked at Odin's side 1,000 years ago, almost like ancient intuition preceding data. Ravens too are astonishingly versatile, intelligent enough to solve puzzles, recognize individual faces, and even manipulate social dynamics. And like wolves, they can be found in vast and varied habitats across the northern hemisphere. Sometimes they move in groups, poetically called a conspiracy of ravens. Ravens are classified as endangered in Sweden because of the low population in the south. But up north, where I live, they are one of the more commonly seen birds. So truly creatures that represent the far north. The symbolism just never ends with these guys. Few realize ravens can actually be taught to talk like parrots, because they have strong vocal learning abilities and flexible syrinx, their vocal organ, allowing them to mimic a wide range of sounds, including human speech. With training, they can imitate words and phrases clearly, sometimes even better than parrots. Ravens also have advanced cognitive skills and social intelligence, which help them understand and use sounds more creatively. So not only can ravens learn to talk, but through their capacity for sound imitation and problem solving, may even surpass parrots as communicators. This combined with the fact that they are extremely colorful birds to other birds who can see in the ultraviolet spectrum truly makes them the parrots of the north. Ravens were not just companions to Odin, but his other eyes. And likewise, Odin's two wolves were also not just companions, but incarnations of the consuming chaos of battle, the hunger that drives war. Odin himself was a god of war, and delighted in it so much that if there were no battles, he would grow restless. He has been known to purposely pit allies against each other, not for conquest, but for the glory and thrill of battle. But as compensation, he would descend to the battlefield to gather those slain warriors who were worthy to join him in his halls in Valhalla. For the Norse people, war was seen as an almost ecstatic and spiritual act. A chance to test one's mettle, so to speak. A profound test of courage and strength, offering the chance to earn lasting glory for oneself and one's people. Since it is so likely that children will meet cruel enemies, let them, at least, have heard of brave knights and heroic courage. Otherwise, you are making their destiny not brighter, but darker. C.S. Lewis. Now returning to the common red and white toadstool, the fungus is often falsely advertised as toxic, even though, according to Wikipedia, which draws on expert sources like the North American Mycological Association, no reliably documented case of death from toxins in these mushrooms in the past 100 years exists for Amanita muscaria, although its close cousin, the Amanita virosa, commonly known as destroying angel in English, or white toadstool, roughly translated from Swedish, is highly toxic on the other hand, and the cause of many unfortunate deaths for unfamiliar amateur mushroom pickers across the world who were unaware of its highly poisonous nature. Even with all the prerequisite facts laid out on the table, Amanita muscaria does still contain small amounts of toxins that can cause, for example, an upset stomach. It just so happens that these magical red and white fungi often grow around spruce and pine trees, like the ones brought indoors to be used as Christmas trees. These colorful mushrooms also so happen to be a favorite food of choice for reindeer, who will gorge themselves on it if possible, completely unaffected by its toxicity. And well, somehow, someway, my ancestors, the northern shamans, figured out, and don't ask me how, that reindeer metabolize Amanita muscaria in a way that converts much of the toxic ibotenic acid into the safe primary psychoactive compound muscimol. So shamans used to, and I believe still do to this day, drink the urine of the reindeer that gorge themselves on this red and white fungi that grow underneath these Christmas trees to induce shamanic states. And yes, this is documented. And coincidentally enough, the Swedish word for reindeer, ren, translates as pure or clean, stemming from the Old Norse hrin of the same meaning. Now, I have no way of verifying if this is just an accident, but suddenly, those colorful gifts under trees, those flying reindeer, those little elves scurrying about in the woods, in the corner of your vision, those flying red-nosed reindeer, guiding and lighting the way through the Arctic darkness, start to sound a bit less like children's tales, and a bit more like encoded and theogenic symbolism. And speaking of red and white, while many people think Coca-Cola invented Santa's red suit, in reality, red and white had been associated with winter gift bringers long before. Older depictions of Father Christmas and Yule figures in Northern Europe sometimes bore red garments. Some researchers even go as far as to speculate that Santa Claus' iconic outfit, the bright red suit trimmed in white, might actually have been inspired by the vivid coloration of Amanita muscaria itself. Given the widespread shamanic use of the mushroom in Arctic and subarctic cultures, and its association with flying reindeer, evergreen trees, and altered states of perception, it is not hard to imagine a cultural fusion where folklore, psychedelic mushrooms, shamanic flight, and Arctic folklore coalesced into one of the most enduring winter icons, the jolly figure we now call Santa Claus. Some say that the classic imagery of Father Christmas as a white bearded man actually evolved from the iconography of Odin. And perhaps they are on to something, as one old title for Odin was actually Jólfaðir, or Julfather, the Old Norse word surviving almost intact into modern Swedish as Julfader. To the ancient Germanic people, including Norse, one of the most important celebrations of the year was Yule, the midwinter festival focusing on the father and head of the Germanic pantheon, Odin, who, under this name, was associated with the wild hunt, a spectral procession of ghostly riders sweeping across the sky during Yule. Odin led this hunt on his eight-legged horse Sleipnir. As Julfather, Odin was a figure of mystery, magic, wisdom, and awe. He often traveled in disguise, with a long cloak, hat, and staff. This wandering image would later echo in depictions of Father Christmas as a mysterious gift-bearing old man. In Norse myth, children would place boots filled with straw or carrots by the hearth for Sleipnir during Yule. Odin, in return, might leave gifts, a direct ancestor to the tradition of hanging stockings for Santa Claus. The idea of a divine or semi-divine figure rewarding children during winter was not originally Christian, but pagan in origin, just like much else. His wintry, wise, gift-giving archetype slipped through the cultural cracks and fused with Christian and folkloric motives to become the modern Santa Claus. So, when you see the jolly old man with the white beard, you're looking at a faint echo of the Allfather himself, riding through the winter night. And while we speak of elves and little helpers scurrying about under the evergreens, let us not forget that in Norse folklore, the word elf did not refer to harmless toy makers, but to beings of great power and mystery. In fact, elves were once just considered a subcategory within the broader class of spirits known as trolls. Not in the modern grotesque sense, but in the older sense of magical, otherworldly beings. The very word for magic in Swedish, trollkonst, literally means troll art, or the art of the trolls. These beings were woven into the natural and supernatural world alike. Just as Odin himself was a god of magic, Scyther, shape-shifting and liminal, walking between worlds, gathering wisdom not only from the skies above, but from the mushrooms below. So, in the cold north, where auras swirl and dance, and reindeer perceive unseen realms through ultraviolet sight, it is not hard to imagine that these ancient Norse people did not just revere these spectral birds as symbols of wisdom, but as luminous messengers of divine insight, visible only to those attuned to the hidden magic of the world. In a land where the ordinary becomes luminous under winter's spell, perhaps Odin didn't just merely send his ravens to watch the world, but to be seen by it. By those who still remember how to look beyond the visible. Those who could still perceive the infused hidden magic within the world that lays just beyond ordinary perception. Perhaps what we call twilight vision. The ability to see not only in low light, but in overlapping realms of meaning, is not merely a metaphor, but a memory. A gift once known to shamans, seekers, and wandering gods. A way of seeing magic and the unseen, not only with the eyes, but with the soul. And in the Arctic twilight, where ravens shimmer like hidden rainbows, and wolves move like shadows with teeth, perhaps magic was never lost, only hidden in plain sight, waiting for those who know how to look. So, let us open our eyes like Odin, like the reindeer and ravens, to the unseen colors of the world. For magic is never lost, only waiting to be seen. Remember, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. and those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Friedrich Nietzsche. So now, as our eyes open and the video closes, I beseech thee that if you made it this far, then write Twilight Vision in the comments below, so I know you did. If you enjoyed the video and learned something new, then please consider supporting the channel by sharing the video. I also just launched my merch shop. I have been doing graphic designs for over 10 years now, and I have been told I have quite an eye for it. So being able to sell physical objects with my designs on it is a very cool opportunity and a bit of a dream come true. When I get the time and inspiration strikes, then more designs will be released for sure. So, if you want to support the channel and get some cool merch with my personal prints in the process, then feel free to check them out. God wills it. Otherwise, you can also support me using Patreon or by becoming a YouTube channel member. Thank you for watching, and I will see you, yes, specifically you, in the next one, mortal. Godspeed, and remember, follow the North Star and you will never lose your way.